Hey there, welcome to the live stream. Thanks for joining me. And also, if you're watching this after the live stream is over, I hope you stick around. And today we're going to do an Ask Me Anything. So it's just going to be a random chat. Last week I did my list of all-time favorite books. And I just finished editing that this afternoon. So I took out the part where I isolated the part where I talk about the books, and I posted that online and added some graphics and stuff. So hopefully that will allow some more people to check out that content. But it's been a very busy week, so I just didn't have much time to prepare something more specific for this talk. So we'll just chat. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. And even if you're watching this later and it's no longer live, you can still post your questions in the comments, which I always read. And then I will get to those questions the next time I go live. Hey, Margot. Hey, Carol. Good to see you. So yeah, this has been a crazy busy week. I've tried to take it easy today and yesterday, but the weekend was insane. And then on Monday I had to do my that was the last evening of my course on the wisdom of the Celtic saints here for the parish, and I advertised it out, at the end of Mass last Sunday, and so all of a sudden there are so many more people showing up. So we had, I don't know, 60, 70 people. It was really insane. And those evenings are usually very taxing because I'm obviously not an expert on the topic. I've only traveled to Ireland, and then I always think I have more time to prepare for an evening like that. So yeah, I ran out of time. So there's always a rush, like a race against the clock. But anyway, people were happy, and it's done now. All right, we've got Erin with some questions. Question number 1 is, what video games are you playing right now? Excellent question. As you know, I am a gamer. I love video games. And I'm currently playing 2 games. I'm again trying to get through Mass Effect because that is such a famous series, and apparently also an amazing story. So I've tried this several times in the past, but I always kind of, like, the moment you arrive on this space station, I don't never have time to move on, and then I forget where I was, and so I don't know. And also initially got a little bit distracted by the action sequences in there. So there are some first-person shooter things in there, which is just not my forte. So that would just cause a hiccup. I just want the story. I don't care for the game, actually. So, but I'm determined now to finish the game, to finish the entire story, and then probably, knowing myself, I'll be hooked. So I'll also play the second and the third in the series. Second game I'm playing a lot. I have been playing a lot for the past 3 weeks is Valheim, which is still one of my favorite games because it's so atmospheric, and I can just lose myself in that game. So it's a really great game for me to decompress, especially when I'm very busy and I'm tired and I say that overstimulated. Just kind of building a house, chopping some wood, hunting some reindeer. It really helps to calm down. I also used it this past weekend to read books. So as you know, I read most of my books as audiobooks, and this is because for my type of brain that works really well. I can do something manual, like cleaning the house or cooking while I'm listening to the book. And in this case, I finished an entire book, Robin Hobb's Assassin's Apprentice, the first in the long series that she wrote. I heard a lot of good things about it, so I figured, you know what, that's going to be a nice book for the weekend. So I mostly read the entire book in audiobook form while I was playing Valheim. Um, it was not as good as I hoped it would be. It was a bit slow. It's very dialogue heavy. Not much happens, and the main character just didn't appeal to me very much. So I thought it would be something more along the lines of I don't know, Tolkien or Brandon Sanderson, and instead, it I don't know. It's just very uneventful. There is a bit of magic, but even the magic system feels very simple and not very. I don't know. It's so different from the other fantasy books that I like, and it's just really going at a very very slow speed. So I don't know. I expected something that would blow me away. Instead, I'm like, I don't know if I want to finish this book. I did, because I always do, but now I'm wondering, should I even continue? I've heard that this is also partially due to, or I heard this from other reviewers that didn't like the first book. They all said what I was also feeling is that the narrator is terrible. So he reads everything in a British accent with a little bit that kind of TV BBC type of English, and it's very monotone. It feels to me as if he's not enjoying the book, and somehow that comes across. So maybe that is also part of the issue that I had. But I also heard that from some readers, at least, that the first book is often given like a 7 out of 10 for most readers, and then the second book gets better, and the third book, especially the last part of the third book, is highly praised by everyone. So that kind of makes me curious. On the other hand, I'm not looking forward to spending another weekend or two just reading a book that just did not do what I hoped it would. There are so many other books on my list that I'm more excited about. But anyway, I just felt that since it's such a highly praised writer and the books are so popular, I felt like I just need to read it. Just like, what is it, The Fourth Wing? Even though I have to say, I actually enjoyed The Fourth Wing a lot better because there's more action. It's more, I don't know, it's more fun. It's not at all on the same level from a literary point of view. The language is kind of dumb. It feels like it's written by a teenager, but then again, it's written for teenagers. So, but in terms of the actual story, it's so much more exciting. All right, let's go up the list, see some more of your questions. Second question by Aaron was, for those of us feeling despair about the state of the world, especially if you're an American, do you have any words of hope? Of course I have. My take on this is always look for, well, a few things. I'm just as worried as most of you, as is the entirety of Europe. We are holding our breath, and it is shocking to see what happens. However, this has to do with the spheres of control. There's this big global situation in which we are no players. And then there is the sphere of the things that tangentially touch upon our lives. And we might be able to influence that at certain moments in our lives. For instance, voting, right? You can vote, and then so you have a little bit of influence on that. And then you have your own circle of control, which is the people around you, your job, your life, how you spend your days. That is something you can control. And so that's where I would encourage you to invest and do the things that you would like the world to emulate. So I'm a very firm believer in always acting according to your own set of values, to hold on to those no matter what. Nobody can rob you from your values. And even if the entire country takes a different turn, if you stay true to yourself, if you stay true to what you believe in is right, and if you do good to others, you will actually have an impact on the world. And helping others is also a way to feel good about yourself and to get rid of fear. There is so much good that you can do. And if you want some tips on stories to read in these trying times, is read The Lord of the Rings. Look at Frodo, and look at the overwhelming power of Sauron and his minions. And that never stopped Frodo and the other hobbits and the other members of the Fellowship to just, move along step by step, hoping against hope, never giving up, and valuing the friendship and seeking comfort in the friendship and making connections with the elves, and then even Legolas and Gimli kind of like becoming friends. There's so many examples there in how you may be not able to influence what's going on in the world, but you can make the world in your immediate vicinity so much better just by living out your values. And I guarantee you, the more you do that, so that's not something you could do on the internet. It's not about retweeting something or voicing your opinion. None of that is going to change anything. But it's to do good, to be kind, to help others. The more you change the world around you, the more you will be changed. So that would be my advice. But, never give up. Never surrender, as they say in Galaxy Quest. Hello, Ivo. I am not ready for Carnival, which is a tradition here in the Netherlands where the weekend before Ash Wednesday, in parts of the country, people go out in the streets and they have Carnival festivities. I personally didn't grow up with it. I am an introvert. So for me, Carnival embodies everything that is not me, and it's not something that I enjoy. So as a priest, I've often been asked to celebrate masses for the occasion of Carnival, where you would have a lot of carnivals. How do you say that? People that celebrate Carnival in mass, and then those were always moments where I had to turn the masking up to 110%. So I always had to pretend that I'm having a good time because I want the people to have a good time. But I would always die a little bit on the inside. So Carnival is not for me, but God bless you if you love it. Let's see. Carol asks, do you plan to insert some theology or church history in your books? Yes, actually, I show. I did a live stream the other day where I showed people my my workflow and how I write the book. And there's always in the center of my screen is always the actual book that I'm writing, and on the right side are two documents, one with notes and the other one with historical research. Because even though it's a fantasy story and it's about storytelling magic, the place and the culture in which it takes place, that should all be correct. And so it is. What I hope is that if you read the book, you will still get a very good feeling for what it was to live in those early medieval times and what it meant, what your life would look like as a novice in a monastery. And so even the story, the magic that's in the book, is still part of kind of a theological framework that I'm setting up. So the premise is always the magic is none other than what we read in the stories about those early saints. So when we read about saints battling dragons or multiplying food or healing people or even being able to control the weather, of course, did that actually happen, or is it a story? That's a nonsensical question. What is most important is that in that story it happens, and so that has a a real impact on the reader of that story or the person who hears that story. So those stories actually can change the world because they inspire you. And so that became the foundation for my magic system, where the stories are the places where the magic takes place. And so what happens if a story mage casts a story spell, it's basically he reads a story. That's all there is. Or he sings a story, which makes it even stronger. And then people are sucked into that story, and it's inside that story that magical stuff happens and dragons appear. And then from time to time, stuff escapes from that story spell and manifests in the real world. So that's kind of a metaphor of what happens when we read, for instance, when we read the Bible, right? When we read the Bible, we read stuff about people that lived thousands of years before us. And yet, the fact that we're reading that story will change my heart. At least it can change my heart. And then through that, I can change the world. That is pure magic. Like, words can actually have a physical effect in the world. And that, of course, ultimately, you'll probably understand that as well, is based on the theology of the incarnation, where the Word of God becomes flesh. And so, and if you look at the story of creation in Genesis, God speaks his word, which we later on in history get to know as Jesus. But when God speaks, it becomes. So when God says something, it becomes a reality. And so that all those elements and those are just very generic theological elements, but they feed my magical system. But it's still it's a challenge to make it I want this to be in the background for me, but it still should read like a fantasy story. I think it's very important. This is not a theology book. This is not a course on church history. It is first and foremost an adventure filled with dragons and gnomes and magical stuff, and hopefully it's delightful. I'm having a blast just immersing myself in that world. It's so much fun to write. Let's go to the next question. Aaron would like to know which ethical choices I'm going to make. That's definitely something I might discuss in one of my either podcasts or videos. In case you're wondering, the podcast, if you look in your podcast app for The Walk with Father Roderick, that's one podcast, and then there's another podcast that is called Story Secrets with Father Roderick. So if you go to either Story Secrets or The Walk, both of the podcasts have artwork with my face on it, so you know it's me. And you can check those out. Joyous Romer, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. May the Force be with you too. What is your favorite Star Wars medium? That is a great question. For me, the first medium is the movies. I love the television shows that they made. I love the animation, but for me, the effect that a Star Wars movie in a theater has on me is unparalleled, and I think it harkens back to my early years as a wide-eyed young boy who saw A New Hope in the movie theater, and every time I see the scroll and I hear the fanfare of John Williams, it brings me back to what I felt when I was that 10-year-old boy. And so that is for me the ultimate medium. I have to say that another medium that made a huge impact on me, and it's pretty rare for Star Wars, is VR. I remember that I played I think it's like a separate mini game of Star Wars. What is it, Battlegrounds, or what is it called? The anyway, first-person shooter game that came out, and they had one part of that game that you could play with the Sony VR headset, and in it you fly an X-wing fighter, and it was a dream come true. I felt like I was sitting in that X-wing fighter. It was amazing. It's one of the reasons that I'm still so enthusiastic about VR, because it's the only medium that has allowed me to feel like I was Luke Skywalker. And then I also played a Star Wars game on the Quest. So I bought the first Quest, and it was Vader Immortal, in which you face Darth Vader, and that too was very cool. It wasn't it was a bit of a side story, so it's not that much tied into the original trilogy, not as much as the mini game that I played on the Sony, but it was still very cool, and I'm really looking forward to. So I now got the Quest 3, but my computer cannot is not fast enough. I've got a very old computer, so I'm looking into upgrading to a newer PC with a better graphics card, so I can then hook it up to the Oculus, not Oculus anymore, the Meta Quest, and just play the Steam VR games. So, but for me, Star Wars works in almost any medium. So I like the games because it's a bit of you get to play a role in the story, which has always been something I dreamt of as a child. I love the television series. Maybe the one medium that so far has not worked for me that well is comic books, and I don't know exactly why, but there's just it doesn't really appeal to me. But I'm very picky with comic books in general. So I've had a subscription to Marvel Unlimited so I would be able to read the Star Wars comics, and I just couldn't focus on the stories. It just, I don't know. There's too much happening on the page. I have to mention one more medium. Maybe maybe I like that even more than the VR stuff, and that is the Star Wars rides in Disneyland. Oh my goodness, Star Tours. The first time I went on the Star Tours ride, I will never forget that. That was one of the coolest moments in my life. And then just recently, a couple of years ago, I went to Anaheim for the Star Wars celebration, and as part of that celebration, we had the Disney park for ourselves. So everybody went home, and the people that were at the celebration were able to spend there a couple of hours just with other Star Wars fans. And so I got to ride the Millennium Falcon, and I did all the rides because there weren't that many people. And I remember that I was really afraid that I wouldn't be able to make it to the Millennium Falcon ride. Because it was already late and they would close at 9, I think. And then there was this girl who works for Disneyland, and she recognized me. She said, "You're Father Roderick." And then she brought me along together with some friends through the VIP entrance, and we got to go straight into the Millennium Falcon. It was like, wow. It's just insane. I'm on the other side of the world, and someone recognizes me, and then I get to ride Millennium Falcon. Oh my gosh, that was, again, it's among my favorite memories when it comes to Star Wars. Oh, another medium. Sorry, you pushed the Star Wars button, so I'll keep talking about this for the next 3 hours. What I also really loved were the Star Wars celebrations. Even though I think that you don't get much for your money, it's very expensive, and you have to be very lucky if you want to get into one of the talks. So I don't think it works very well, but I really appreciated the overall vibe, just the enthusiasm to be in that crowd where everybody loves Star Wars, and then you see your actors. I was mainly spending time in London at the public stage, so you didn't have to have a special ticket or win the lottery to get in. And then they had all these interviews all day long with actors, some of which starred in TV shows that we hadn't seen yet. So there were people from Skeleton Crew. There were actors who played in The Acolyte. There were, and we hadn't seen them yet. So they were virtually unknown. But I knew I'm going to film. I'm going to remember all this. And then once I see the TV show, I was like, I have been near that person. I can become a total fanboy when I'm there. So yeah, I have fond memories of those, especially of those moments. Is that enough? Let's go to the next question. Chris loves Return of the Jedi. His favorite movie. I like that one too, although Empire Strikes Back for me is the best one. Aaron says, I don't do enough housework for audiobooks. I use it. I also oftentimes will go for a walk and I'll just listen to an audiobook. That is, I go out for a walk and I record a podcast, or I listen to an audiobook. And so I signed up for a big walking event in the Netherlands in July. It's called the Walk of the World. For 4 days in a row, you walk 40 kilometers per day. So that's a total of 160 kilometers. In order to get to the finish line, I will have to train on a weekly basis. And of course, the closer I get to the event, the longer I have to walk. And so I'm looking forward to those walks because that will be my reading time. And I usually listen to audiobooks at twice the speed because I'm a very fast reader. If I read a book, I'm just like, so audiobook at regular speed is way too slow. So I usually up it all the way to twice the speed. And then that feels natural to me. Anyway, what else? So the comics, books, games, I think I answered the question. Merchandise, I haven't talked about that, but I'm not collecting anything. The only merchandise I have here is Baby Yoda, which was made for me. It's crochet. It's made even before any of the Baby Yoda official merchandise was out. So I had a lady who watched my program on TV, and she made this for me. She sent this to me, and so it's adorable. It's absolutely adorable. All right, Ole Grantad. Question: have your peers in the clergy approached your very public love to geekdom? It has over time. Right now, most of them are just ignoring it. They don't know what I do. They don't follow me. They're not online. Some of my friends know that I'm a geek. Like I have the parish vicar here in this parish. He's pretty much a geek as well. He loves board games. He reads a ton of books. He's very much into Stephen King and science fiction, etc. So I kind of found a soulmate. And but there are also lots of priests who never read a book, never watch TV, never go to the movies, never ever have played a video game. They probably think it's a waste of time. There are lots of Uncle Owens among the clergy. But, it's not as bad as it used to be. Geek culture has become much more mainstream than it was when I was a young priest. And as long as I've been a priest, I've always been known for being a Star Wars geek. And I've been on TV with like podcasting and YouTube. And so it's kind of my thing. They know that. And I think that most of them kind of like, okay, well, I'm glad I'm not Father Roderick. In a way, this is my work now. I've been appointed as a full-time media priest. So even though I assist in the parish during the weekends, I work for 100% for you. Like this is why I do these live streams. It's my job. And plus, it's fun, of course. So, I think, I don't know, for a long time, I kind of worried about what people would think of me. And it was almost like my secret identity. I was regular parish priest during the day and Star Wars geek running a massive Star Wars fan site during the night. And and people that were following my Star Wars website didn't know that I was a priest because it was all text. That this was before YouTube, and so I still remember when sometimes people would discover that the website that they went to every single day was maintained by a priest. They were like, "What?" Yeah, I always like that combination. I always say I've been a geek before I was a priest. Seth wants to wish me good luck and encourage me to keep on the grind to finish the book. Thank you so much, Seth. I really appreciate it. The book, it is a grind. It's a lot of hard work. It is way more complicated than I thought it would be, but it's also very challenging. And I learn every day. And even when I'm not writing, I'm still like following courses on YouTube and learning from other writers. And when I read books now, even that has become an occasion for me to learn from well-respected writers and hopefully improve my craft. Jedi Survivor is pretty good. Yeah, those two Jedi games are amazing. Joyce Romer says first books, then movies, and then the Old Republic game, which I still haven't finished. But the books are... I was a huge fan of the Expanded Universe. I love those books. They were so atmospheric, and there was so much excitement around those books because you finally got to know how the story continued. And they were usually written in a very cinematic way. I could just picture the movie. So I was very disappointed when they decided to scrap what's in the EU. But then again, it gave us new stories. Let's see. A Kellyan of the Fountain. Let's see. Ole Grant had elaborates. I've always been curious if the church has ever come to you and been like, hey, this is okay, but maybe not this so much, Harry Potter, etc. No. I'm very glad that I'm a Catholic in the sense that we are usually pretty open-minded towards that sort of stuff. No, you may have the occasional very kind of radicalized Catholic, and they have read on some websites that Harry Potter is evil, but most of that kind of rhetoric comes from more Protestant, evangelical denominations, which for me is totally incomprehensible. I mean, if you read Tolkien, he was a very faithful Catholic, and yet he writes about wizards and about dragons and about hobbits and elves. So yeah, never saw any problem in that. Plus, if you read the Bible, you should be used to reading strange stories about stuff that shouldn't be able to happen. So I don't know. It's fear for the unknown. Noel says, first time commenting here. You surfaced in my YouTube due to my interest in Star Wars. Would love to hear your thoughts on relating kingdom theology and Star Wars politics. What would Jesus do? Yeah. Well, there are quite a few elements in Star Wars deliberately put in there by George Lucas that, of course, are inspired by biblical themes and motives. And I would even go so far as to say that in Star Wars you find a lot of themes that the entirety of mankind has in common. Things that you see pop up in almost any religion, in any holy book. And I think that George Lucas capitalized on the fact that we all can relate to these deeper themes that he put into the story, because in one way or another they show up in kind of our common cultural awareness, I would say. It's and from a Catholic point of view, as a theologian, I would say it's because every person on the planet has God's imprint. So obviously there are going to be things that we all have in common. And so a lot of our stories, we express those common themes. This is why stories are so important, because they can bring us together. We can relate to them in the same way. And so what I see in Star Wars is just another expression of those deepest desires that we have, and also these fundamental truths that if you listen to your conscience, if you try to find God, you will find those truths. And so, I mean, it's not that Star Wars is a replacement for the Bible, or that it is like what C.S. Lewis tries to do with Narnia, that everything in the story has to somehow relate to something in the Bible. I personally don't really like that kind of storytelling. But there are lots of ways in which you can build bridges and see parallels, and kind of it rhymes. That's something that George Lucas always says about his own work. You've got these motives that keep coming back in Star Wars, and it's a form of poetic rhyme, you could say, but you can also see that between different narrative traditions. So I'm always looking at Star Wars with an eye for the deeper levels, because they are there, because the writers, the creators of those stories carry them, and then they translate that into that fictional world of Star Wars, just as Tolkien did in The Lord of the Rings, and Lewis in Narnia, and and so forth and so on. Let's see, what else have we got? Silmarillion is, of course, also great. I've got Silmarillion here. Yep, that's the Silmarillion up there in Dutch. The next question: are you ready for Lent, and what are my resolutions? No, I'm not ready for Lent. I'm never ready for Lent. I'm not a fan of Lent, if I'm totally honest. Why? Because I actually wrote this in my journal this morning. I was like, why do I always feel this resistance against Lent? And I think I know now, finally, why it has always bugged me. And it's because Lent is requiring me to change my routines. So there's fasting, there's praying, there's lots of stuff. There's more church going. And this might sound a bit weird coming from a priest, but you're also watching a priest who is on the spectrum and has ADHD, and possibly also a form of autism. And so I am very, very reliant on routines and on predictability. And I think what Lent does is to uproot that predictability. If only like the start is on Wednesday, it's Ash Wednesday. And that immediately creates an error in my mind. Like, that's not supposed to be in the middle of the week. That doesn't make sense. It should be on Sunday. Don't ask why. It's just my brain that is like, nope, don't like it. So that's my honest answer. Of course, I'll be I'll be an obedient Catholic and just go through the thing. But yeah, it's not always easy to be neurodivergent and to be a Catholic. Ask me anything, I'll say anything back. All right, my opinion on Ecthelion. I have no idea what that is. Ecthelion, I need to Google that. Is that a book? Ecthelion? Okay, Ecthelion was an elf lord of Gondolin. Okay, I've never heard of Ecthelion. So, enlighten me. Trackside, hello. Sorry, I'm a bit behind on the questions, but I'll get to yours. Are there any stories as geeks we should avoid? For example, if they take a character who is good and twist it to accept evil ideologies. No, I'm usually not for. I would say, your faith is stronger than you think, and I think there's actually value in reading things that might not follow all the things that you believe in. because it challenges you. It challenges you to think about, what would I do in this situation? Why does this story irk me? You're a reader in the sense that you can always distance yourself from what's happening to the characters in the stories. The most boring stories are pious stories. The stories where everybody is always good and always doing the right thing. That's not a story. Stories always require us to face tough choices and to sometimes mess up. And the more those stories reflect our own real lives, not the one that we're projecting, and oftentimes we do that. When I go to church on Sunday, I do my best to resemble the priest that people want me to be. But of course, if I look into the mirror, I see someone who has qualities, but also flaws, and who has messed up more times than you can count in life. And that is why I like stories to reflect that. And so if I read a story about someone who falls to the dark side, like for instance, the story of Anakin Skywalker, I can enjoy that story and I can learn from it and I can reflect upon it. There are some stories that are very ideologically biased. A good example would be the Philip Pullman books. And so I started reading those books first with a bit of apprehension, because a lot of people told me it's very anti-Catholic, it's very, you shouldn't be reading that. And I was like, okay, well, let me be the judge of that. Nobody tells me what I can read or what I can't read. And actually, I was just curious. Okay, well, let's see what he says. And so the first book, I was like, man, this is so cool. No wonder this is so popular. And I love this. I love the world building. I really like kind of some of the stuff that he puts in there, where the evil guys are all like have a bit of a Catholic flair to them. And then the second book, I was like, okay, I start to notice some stuff that is actually, that feels extraneous to the story. This is the writer who is frustrated about stuff in the church. And then I think in the third book, there's just this rant that goes on and on and on and on. And he's just like shooting at everything Catholic. And at that moment, it didn't hurt me. It didn't, it didn't bother me to a certain extent. But I was like, okay, this is just bad storytelling. What you're doing now is you're using your story to dump your own frustration on the reader. And personally, I think your opinion is very narrow and very short-sighted. My question while I was reading that was, what happened? What happened in your life? Who did you encounter that made you feel like this about the Catholic Church? Because there's so much hurt underneath that story that I feel like that's not, I don't know many people who are so fiercely negative about faith unless something happened. So that would be my question to Philip Pullman. It's like, dude, what the heck happened? Just tell me your story. So that makes me curious. But no, I think I would say read what builds you up. Read the stories that make you happy. Read the stories that make you think. Read the stories that also the stories that challenge you. I read a ton of books that are from people that are living a very different life from mine. But for me, it's a way also to get to know other people's positions and to learn from that. And I'm always curious. And the same is true, scientifically. I'm not just reading theology books or philosophy because those are the two things that I studied. No, I like to read about neuroscience. I like to read about psychology and about economics. And every time I learn so much. And it makes me also more prudent to pretend that I know it all. Because I don't. The more I read, the more questions I have. And that's a good thing. Because that makes me learn. Hope that was helpful. Are there any new gadgets or apps that you want to try out? Asks Kirill. Well, I think the biggest... wait, actually, there is one gadget that I'm going to order soon, and that is the Elgato prompter, which is a teleprompter that you mount in front of the camera. So imagine the camera that I'm currently using for streaming is a Canon, and it's got a really nice lens, so get a little bit of the blurry background and stuff. The thing is, if I speak to the camera, I look at you, right? But if I were to read a script, and the script would be on my computer, I'd be like, okay, and then that doesn't work. So a prompter puts a slanted mirror in front of the camera lens, so the camera can look through it, and it reflects whatever you put underneath it. And the Elgato actually has a built-in screen that works like a second monitor of your computer. I do have another prompter, but it requires me to use my iPad or my phone, and it's pretty heavy and it's cumbersome, and then I have to somehow put the text in the phone. It's a pain. So I rarely use prompters, except for on my phone, because it's a little bit easier to use. So since I'm hoping to create more content especially for my BookTube channel, where I would like to have some stuff be scripted, because otherwise, I know myself, I'm very verbose. So having, reading a script would be better. But so that's the one gadget that I want to order. It's kind of expensive though. It's like $260 or something. So I always, when I see something that is expensive, I always wait for a week or so and see if I still want it after a week. That happened also for my gimbal. So I have the DJI gimbal here, which I use to film myself if I'm outside. And there was this new Insta360 gimbal, which is much better than this one. This is the DJI. And I was like, okay, I need to have it. And like for days, I've been obsessing about that gimbal and watching all the reviews. And I was convinced that I needed to order it. And then I mounted this camera, and it actually works fine. And I don't need the gimbal anymore. So I know myself. I need to not immediately buy what crosses my path. All right. The Fall of Gondolin. It's on my list. I haven't read it yet. Star Wars Battlegrounds. Yeah, that was the name. Tubgwin Ace. My question is, what would you say to people who consider series like Chainsaw Man or Evangelion evil for depicting some demons as heroes and angels as antagonists? Many series do this. Yeah, you're totally right. What would I say to those people? I'd say, okay, that you're entitled to your opinion. You probably haven't watched it. You probably don't understand the story. You probably have never watched anime, and you're just being triggered now because devils equals scary, dangerous, and angels is like they should be the good guys. Why are they the bad guys? So I would say that's fine. I'm not going to convince those people, but allow me to differ and allow me to enjoy these stories, because ultimately these stories are not about angels or about demons. These stories are about choices. And so angels can make the wrong choice. And in fact, even in Christian theology, angels have made wrong choices. Demons are angels. They're exactly the same creatures. But the thing is, the angels who made the wrong choice became demons, or we call them demons. But they're the same beings. So, I'm never bothered by stories like that. And then, of course, a lot of people find anime suspect, and it's because they have a very, usually very simplistic impression of what anime is. I've never watched it. They never cared for it. So I would say, well, you know what? You're just misinformed. Go watch the videos of this priest in the Netherlands who creates videos about Evangelion, trying to explain the deeper layers. Now, who am I kidding? I'm never going to convince those people. Usually when people like that come across my path, I was like, okay, I can't change people. What is the saying? You cannot change the people around you. Like, I'm never going to convince that person to think otherwise, because they're in their bubble, and for them it's important as an identity marker to rail against evil stories and whatnot. So I cannot change the people around me, but I can change the people around me. It means I can hang out with people who do understand. I can hang out with people that love the same stories as I do. And that's what I do. That's why I have my TikTok channel. That's why I have this YouTube channel. It's so I can hang out with people like you who understand the world of geeks. And anyone else, well, if they like to rail against this kind of stuff, yeah, too bad for them. They don't know what they're missing. It's not my problem. It's their opinion. So there you go. That would be my answer. I just shrug. Whatever. I don't. If people ask me, why don't you like soccer? I'm like, no, I don't know. I just don't like soccer. I'm not interested. Yeah, but you should like soccer because soccer is good and running is bad. Yeah, that's your opinion. I don't concur. Well, leave me alone. That's kind of the same thing, right? Thank you, Karen, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Actalion of the Fountain. Yeah, that is the Actalion of the Fountain. I've Googled it here. So it is a character of the Lord of the Rings. Interesting. Actalion was an elf lord of Gondolin, leader of the people of the Fountain, and slayer of Gothmog, lord of the Balrogs. I love those names. He was also at one point the warden of the Great Gate of Gondolin. Actalion had the most beautiful voice and greatest musical talent with the flute of all the people of Gondolin. I love that because obviously music plays an important role in the genesis of Middle-earth. It's part of the way in which Ilúvatar creates things. It's by music. Great. I'll keep an eye on that whenever I get to read The Fall of Gondolin. Terrell, Eugene Bellinger has another question. What are some of your favorite pilot episodes from the current streaming area? Severance. 100% Severance. What an amazing pilot that was. Well, it's not recent anymore, but the first episode of Lost, which is a show that I think in many respects reminds me of Severance and what they do with Severance. Lost, the first episode was insanely good. That pilot was awesome. Trying to think of some more series that I'm currently watching. I like the pilot of Freerun. By the way, if you follow me on TikTok, you heard me rave about Freerun, which is an anime about an elf and her companions. Freerun is coming to Netflix this upcoming Saturday, and I highly recommend you watch it. Even if you never watched any anime, you don't like it, you think you don't like it, Freerun you're gonna fall in love with that story. It's so good. Anyway, other pilot episodes. I sometimes sample a few of those pilots, and then it depends if I have time to go watch it. I tried to watch Arcane, and I just couldn't get into it, even though they said it was good. For All Mankind, I still, it's an amazing series on Apple TV Plus about this alternate timeline in which the Russians were the first to land on the moon. I remember that pilot episode to be very thrilling. House of Dragons, I never watched it. Let's see what else. The pilot for Willow, the television series, didn't appeal to me at all. I didn't like it. But I did love actually the rest of the series. I thought it was a really great story, and I still incomprehensible that they took it offline, because it's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful series. It's beautifully made. It's just one of those inscrutable decisions that Disney made. Are you going to make shows for Dutch TV in the future? Minxie wants to know. Um, uh, I'm not really planning on doing. I am one of the 3 interviewers for a program on Sunday morning, so my face is still on TV from time to time. So tomorrow I have to film another interview. Um, I've been working on a documentary series about Ireland, but it's a ton of work because I have at least 20 hours of footage. But that would be really prime material for a television series. It's just that I have to do that all in my spare time, and I've got so many other priorities. So TV is problematic in the sense that it takes an incredible amount of time. Like to create 1 minute of a documentary takes me an hour. So a 25-minute episode takes me 25 hours to edit. And that's just the editing. That's not even the filming and all the stuff and the writing. And nobody's paying me for that. So I could make it first and then try to sell it. But since I have no guarantee that they will be buying it, I would be spending approximately 80 hours on at least 80 hours on creating stuff that I don't know will have any return on investment, and that's just a gamble that I'm not willing to make. So maybe if someone can finance it or something like that, yeah. If Schmaug is watching this and he still has some leftover gold coins and he wants to share, then I'd be all for it. All right, hello. The gaming politician is there as well. Long time no see, at least not in the live stream. Burcell, have you seen Your Lie in April? No, I have not heard of that. Your Lie in April. That's a manga series. Is it also an anime? Oh, it is an anime. Thank you for the tip. This is the first person to mention that. I'll put it on my to-watch list. Thanks. As a man of the cloth, Karen wants to know, do you choose what you want to reply? Well, it depends. Oh, what's happening with the lights? Something happened with the lights. I don't know. Maybe it's a sign that I need to start wrapping up. Well, I cannot obviously say anything I want. As a man of the cloth, I have my responsibilities. But I feel usually pretty free to just share my thoughts. And I've been a podcaster for 20 years, so I always share how I think about stuff. I cannot, pretend to be someone I'm not. Terrell asks, what is your opinion of your fellow YouTube priest, Father Mike Schmitz and Father David Michael Moses? Yeah, both American priests. I think they're doing great work. They clearly have found a huge audience for their style. To me, as a European, it is very American. It's a bit too much sometimes. But I can imagine that there is. I mean, I'm very glad that they do this. And there's also the Franciscan friar who is doing the videos. What's his name again? Father I don't know. I forgot his name. But anyway, I see him all the time in my timeline. I'm so glad because for years I was the only priest in the world that did podcasting and tried to reach out. And thankfully, finally, there are some more priests that are doing this. And they obviously have way more talent than I have for this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I've got a lot of admiration for what they do. I still wish that we had more European priests also doing this kind of stuff because it's, I don't know, every culture needs its own voices, I think. and so for the American audience, works pretty well. Oh, and also, one other thing that I want to say is both Father Mike Schmitz and Father Moses usually focus on a Catholic audience. They make their videos for Catholics or young Catholics, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just something that I've never had as a priority. My own mission has always been to go beyond the boundaries of my own community and my own church, because I was serving Catholics in the parish, and so whenever I did media with Star Wars, I was always trying to connect with people who would never ever come to church, and so I cannot use theology or Bible stories or whatever that. Because that's not a common language. That's not the language that I have in common with the people that I want to reach. And that is why I focus so much on the geeky stuff. Because I can speak geek, and so can a lot of other people. And not many priests speak geek. So that's kind of what I focused on. And I have to say, it's been very beneficial for me as well, because it allowed me to broaden my horizon tremendously, to learn from so many wonderful people, many of which will never become Catholic or go to church, but they don't have to, because I love them for who they are and what they are. And for me, it was, I don't know, I've always said my parish is the world. I'm the chaplain of the Death Star. I am the chaplain of Slytherin, whatever you want me to be. But I always want to be among people that love stories, because I love them too, and it gives us something to talk about and to find common ground. Do I like David Lynch? Yes, I think he's an incredibly talented, or was, because he died, right? Incredibly talented filmmaker. Yeah, I love almost everything that he did. Have I watched Attack on Titan? I've watched almost the entirety of season 1. It's awesome. I wish I had more time to watch it. Chris wants to know if I heard about Kathleen Kennedy allegedly stepping down. Yes, I heard that, but it's not confirmed. And if it's not confirmed, then there's not much to say about it. So this could also just be another rumor. There are lots of people that want her to step down. I'm not one of them. I think Kathleen Kennedy is an amazing woman, and she did a fantastic job for movies, for Star Wars, for Disney. But I can imagine, I mean, she's a little bit older. Her husband is like 79 now, so I can totally see that at one point she just wants to get out of the rat race. And then we'll have someone else. Yeah, it's just a job. Let's see. Karen wants to know, again, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Who are the greatest Eldar? The Eldar. This is very specific Lord of the Rings stuff. So just as a little reminder, the Eldar are those elves who accepted to leave Cuivienen and undertake the great journey to reach Valinor. Valinor is this elusive land beyond the horizon. If you've seen Rings of Power, it's where Galadriel goes on the boat before she drops in the water. So it's kind of this mythical land where you can live for many centuries, and it's where Frodo goes at the end of the story as well, and Bilbo. Some of these Eldar reached Aman and were called Amanyar. Others stayed behind in Middle-earth and were called Umanyar. All right. Do we have a list of who they are? I don't really see a list. But this is kind of part of the Lord of the Rings lore that I'm not very familiar with yet. I'm doing my best, but I've recently become a member of the Dutch Tolkien Society, and that's a very humiliating experience because I'm surrounded by people who have been reading Tolkien for most of their lives, and it's their only hobby. Whereas for me, Tolkien is like one in a row of thousands of books that I am interested in. So I often lack these precise knowledge about the lore. So slew the Lord of all Balrogs. Yeah, I think it's always fascinating to see that Tolkien wrote such a backstory for his world, and a kind of a mythological backstory. I love it. The trailer is for Andor season 2. Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so looking forward to that series. I think it's going to blow us off our socks. Hey Petey, good to see you in the live stream as well. I'm a little bit behind on answering the questions. Minxie, also a fellow Dutchie. Are you making TV shows for Dutch TV in the future? Not at all anymore. So as I explained, I've not been asked to make anything. I could volunteer to make some stuff, but it's a bit of a risky proposal because, of the time it takes to create something. And I personally don't even know if I can pull it off anymore because I'm writing a book, which takes up all my spare time. And I don't know. But never say never. I mean, I still know how to make documentaries. I still film a lot of documentaries. So who knows? Did I enjoy Silo? Oh my goodness, I loved Silo. I loved. The books also. Uriel, Flame of God, the angel. Uriel. The Flame of God. I mean, that's very biblical, right? Uriel means the flame of God, the fire of God. But that's not, Uriel is not from Lord of the Rings, is it? Or is it? So apparently Uriel is often identified as the angel with a flaming sword who chases Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. So yeah, those are all kind of figures in the story that represent God. So angels are messengers of God, not just by relating messages, but also by showing what God would do. And in a lot of the biblical stories, God is kind of kept out of the picture deliberately because God is a mystery, and you cannot truly fully depict him. So in a lot of these stories, the writers chose to use angels to convey what God wants and what God says. And Uriel is one of those, like the flaming sword. Obviously, it's kind of the instrument of judgment, you could say. That angel in that story is basically enacting God's judgment on Adam and Eve's actions. And obviously, it's Adam and Eve have condemned themselves. It's not that God wants them out of his paradise. No, they walk away from God. They hide from God, and so God lets them to a certain extent. But of course, that's theology. The story is a story, and you tell a story. You need characters. You need something to happen. Andor season 2 trailer, yeah, really awesome. I need to do a reaction video to it as well. I've only seen it on TikTok, so it was cut off on both sides. The celebration, hopefully, yeah, I hope we're gonna get some good surprises. I want more movie news. Seriously, it's been so long since we've had a theatrical release. Hopefully a trailer for Grogu and a Mandalorian. I wouldn't be surprised. I hope that they don't just show it to the people in the hall. They have a tendency to do that, and I hate them for it. I shouldn't use that word, but seriously, if you show a trailer to a few people, show them to the rest of the world as well. Why not? We've got some Polish, but I don't know if I can read that because I would have to translate that, and I cannot currently do that. However, I can use Google Translate. I need to start wrapping up, guys. Translate, Google Translate. Because it has a camera, and then I can just point it here and see if I can then read what is written there. Maybe not. From Warsaw. I really like listening to my father. I like my father, the broadcast, and the whole of Poland, Father. I greet you. Well, thank you so much. How do you say thank you in Polish again? I forgot. Yeah, my brain does not want to connect right now. But I appreciate the comments. If you could live and serve on any Star Wars world or planet, which one would you choose and why? Probably Coruscant. Because it's a cool city. There's so much to see there. I like Coruscant. I always loved the concept of Coruscant. Any other planet? Naboo, not so much. Tatooine, definitely not. Hoth, too cold. Bespin, too boring. Yeah, probably Coruscant. Sounds like a fun city. The geloofsgesprek. Yeah, that's my show. Father Schmitz also said that taxation is theft and anything given to the less fortunate must be voluntary. Oh, well, you'd have to look at the context in which he said that. Usually Father Schmitz has his theology quite, in order. So maybe there's a bit of a misunderstanding there. But taxation is theft. That sounds like that's not what the church says. Absolutely not. Is that new Star Wars Revenge of the Sith Episode 3 getting a new anniversary right in March? Oh, is that so? Oh, I hope we're getting like a re-release or something like that. Have you heard of the anime Orb on the movements of the Earth? Historically based fiction related to early 17th century church and heliocentrism. No, haven't heard of it. Sounds fascinating. Yet another one I need to add. So I need to start writing this down because otherwise I'm going to forget. So we got Orb. What was the other one? There was another one that someone mentioned. Oh yeah, I remember now. It was Orb on the movements of the Earth. And then I think I Googled it, didn't I? Apparently, your lie in April. Your lie in April. I'll add them to my to watch list. How do you feel about the rise of romantasy? I did a video on that. Check out the video on my BookTube channel, which is Father Roderick-Books. You may actually be watching this on my BookTube channel. If not, go there and watch my video on the Fourth Wing. And I'll tell you what I think about romantasy. What are your thoughts on Carlos Acutis and his upcoming canonization? I think it's cool. Don't know his story that much, but I mean, he was a web programmer and a geek, so what's not to love? Yeah, I think it's cool that we have like a teenager, young adult as an example for other young people. So yeah, cool. Super Chat, Kirill, is a donation that someone can give. So if you're watching this on the main YouTube channel, which is the only one that is monetized, people can actually like do like a micro donation, and that shows up in my chat. And so, for instance, if someone really wants to make a point, the super chat is a way to get my attention, and so I'll try to answer that question if I can, of course. And sometimes it's just someone who enjoys the stream and is like, okay, I want to support this content creator. So it's like a very easy way to support the channel. Let's see, Anglican priest. Tim is an Anglican priest. Good, and a geek. Awesome. Wonderful. Good to see you, Tim. Love to connect. Always nice to have fellow geeks among the clergy. Dantooine seemed okay in KOTOR. Yeah. Stinkbug Deity. Nice to catch you live. I've been following you since I saw your first Star Wars trailer reactions. Oh, that is so cool. Well, good to connect to you. I have to start wrapping things up because normally I do these streams for about an hour and it's already 17 past 8. So I still need to kind of wind down a little bit, watch some anime and then go to bed because I got TV work tomorrow. Thanks, Joyous Roamer, for the super chat. I really appreciate it. What are my thoughts on Skeleton Crew? My thoughts on Skeleton Crew. I loved that series. It's maybe my favorite television show so far. It perfectly captures what Spielberg did so well in the 80s and 90s. It's this kind of blockbuster feeling. It's got scope. It's adventurous. The only downside is it was so short. I wanted more episodes. I wish they had done 16 episodes or something like that. It's just all these shows are way too short. I hope they're going to do a sequel. With the same kids, obviously, they're way older now. So I don't know what that will do to the overall feel of the series. But then again, they could also use their little siblings, I think the show needs to have kids in the main roles. But I so wish they'd done the same as what they did with Stranger Things. Just shoot 4 seasons right away, green light the whole thing. There's so much left on the table there. And this is a bit because it feels like Star Wars is still a bit of an experiment to them. They don't know exactly what they want and how to please the fans. But Skeleton Crew for me was bullseye. It's like I'm gonna rewatch that series multiple times. That's how much I love it, which I haven't done with any of the other series. Are you also on Twitch? No, I do have a Twitch channel, but I don't use it that much. It's very, very difficult to grow an audience on Twitch, so I prefer to focus on my YouTube channels because that's where the majority of my fans are. Well, that's not entirely true. TikTok is where most of my fans are, but TikTok is only about anime, whereas my YouTube channels have a bit of overlap, so it's easier to bring the herd together. My brother says that doing homilies on Star Wars is easy, but Star Trek is not. I kind of agree. Star Trek is much more science. It's kind of hard. It's science fiction. It's not. Star Wars is fantasy. It's space fantasy. So the stories lend themselves better, I think, to create like analogies with biblical themes or religious themes. However, of course, I'm not a very knowledgeable Trekkie. I do love Star Trek, but I don't know as much about it as I do about Star Wars. And Star Trek in general is not as widely known, at least over here. Star Wars, most people have heard of it. Star Trek is kind of, people are aware of the name, but they don't know about the stories. So in general, I never do geeky homilies, ever. because my audience doesn't know these movies. And so you always have to speak the language of the people you're trying to reach. This is why I talk about Star Wars here with you. But I normally don't do that in homilies. Very rarely I might actually tell a story that is kind of tangentially related to Star Wars or something like that. Or maybe if I've gone to a Star Wars celebration or, to a fantasy festival, I might talk about that in the homily, but I always tell a story and then I describe what I see because most people have never been at a fantasy festival. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with me for so much time. I really appreciate it. Hopefully this was fun. Thank you so much for your questions. I didn't have much inspiration for tonight, but thanks to your questions, it was a lot of fun to talk about some of these topics. Thanks to those of you who have done a super chat. Your donations are super. How do you say that? I value that a lot. I live on donations. That's kind of my only source of income. So thank you so much for your support. If you want to join my community as a monthly supporter, check out fatherroderick.com/join. So fatherroderick.com/join, and you can join the community like that. Berserk. Yeah, that's another topic for another time. But that's also a fascinating story. All right, I'm going to post a final link here, and that's going to be my invitation to my Discord server. So if you want to hang out with me and with the rest of the community, you can click on that link, and then you will be on my Discord server. That is, if I can find the link, of course. I got way too many windows open. No, I wasn't looking for the Discord. I was looking for OneNote. Where is that thing? Here we go. And then I go look for Discord. And then I have this link for you. And it's funny. Almost every day we got new people joining the Discord. And it's a very kind of positive, safe environment. We want to keep things very upbeat there. Very much kind of the same vibe as here in the chat. So if you like this kind of conversation, then by all means, join the Discord server. And here we are. If you go and click on this link, I'd be happy to welcome you on my Discord. Any new videos on Evangelion? I wish I had time. There's so much to share about Evangelion. Right now, my priority is more on Freerun because Freerun is going to premiere on Netflix this upcoming Saturday. So I expect a lot of people to check out the Freerun videos. But I will eventually get back to Evangelion because it's such an amazing series, such an amazing story. All right, hope you all had time to copy the Discord link. And just if you click on it right now, please say hi in the community and introduce yourself, and then we can continue the conversation for years to come. Again, thank you so much for joining me tonight, and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, or I don't know what your time zone is. And we'll do this again next week, so keep an eye on my socials. Take care. Bye.